Well, I was born in Elk Prairie Township, Jefferson County, which is about 12 miles south of Mount Vernon, and on a farm near Nason, Illinois, where the north end of Wren Lake's located now. And my mother, dad, Guy and Mary Peterson. I was the oldest of 6 children, and I went to grade school at Nason, a 3-room schoolhouse, had first, second, third grade in one room, and fourth, fifth in another room, and sixth and seventh in another room. And I born in 1924, November the 20th, or December the 11th, 1924.
And where were you when the war started?
When the war started, I had graduated from high school. When they bombed Pearl Harbor, I was at Nason, Illinois, at a little grocery store on Sunday morning when they bombed Pearl Harbor. And they were the only ones that had a radio around that part. We didn't have any electricity or no radio. We lived in the country and used kerosene lights. But then they announced it on the radio that they'd bombed Pearl Harbor. That's where I was at, in Nason, at the grocery store.
At the grocery store on Sunday morning.
Sunday morning.
And what were you doing before you entered the service?
I was helping my father farm, and we lived on a farm, and he rented a lot of terrace ground, and we farmed with horses and took a lot of horsepower to do the farming. And I graduated, when I graduated from high school, I was 18, and they was registered for the draft. And whenever I registered for the draft, but about a couple months, they called me up to go to Chicago to be examination board, and I put in for a farm deferment, and I got a 6 months farm deferment to help my father farm while he was putting out the crop, and some of the fellows didn't have any help, and so he needed help. So the government didn't take me at that time. I was about a year later before I went into the military service.
So did they call you again, or you volunteered, or how did that work?
No, they drafted me.
Okay.
I went into service in 1943, November the 3rd, when I went up to Camp Grant, Illinois for my induction.
What, did you have any idea, how long did you think you were going to be gone?
I had no idea how long I'd be gone, because nobody had, the Germans hadn't started a war with them yet.
Okay.
And the Japanese was the only ones they was fighting at that time.
Were you a member of a church at the time?
No, my mother belonged to the Baptist church in Nason. My dad didn't go to church, but my mother went. And would take us kids to Sunday school and to church, a little country church.
So where were you sent for training?
We went to Chicago, and I was there about 3 days, and we went to California, to Camp Roberts, California, to my basic training. And that was our artillery and an infantry camp. And they told us that when we left there, we didn't know which camp we was going to. It was going to be the infantry or artillery. It took us 3 days by troop train to go to California. We'd stop at siding, let a milk train pass us, because at that time they had priority, and we was just going whenever we had an opportunity to go. It took 3 days, and had about 6 cars on the troop train that went to California.
And so were they just like regular seats on a railroad?
Regular seats, and they folded back, and you just kind of laid back in them. They didn't have sleepers on them like they have now. We had a dining car, but you pass through it and get your chow whenever it's time to eat, but it was slow moving, and we stopped in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and they examined the train and checked all the wheel bearings and greased it and oiled it. We spent about half a day at Albuquerque, New Mexico to make sure that the train would get there all the way.
So how long were you at this camp in California? What was the name of it?
Camp Roberts,
Roberts.
California. I was there for 17 weeks, and one of the fellows at the gate where we went in, after we got off the train and they took us by the truck, told us if we went to the left, we'd be in the artillery. If we went to the right, we'd be in the infantry. We didn't know what he meant by that, but anyway, I ended up in the field artillery camp.
Did you choose right or left, or they told you?
They told us. We didn't have no choice. They told us which way to go.
And how were you able to communicate with people at home, to send letters and receive letters while you were there or not?
Yes, we'd have to write letters or cards, and take about a month to get a letter. Whenever they traveled by Pony Express, why, it took a long time to get them. But we had camp there in a barracks, which there was about 80 men in each barracks. It was 2 floors, and there's about 40 on each floor. And I slept in a cot, and you just had just room for your cot, and you had a foot locker at the end of the cot, and that's your space right there. You had to keep it clean and keep your bed made so it'd flip a quarter on it and it'd bounce.
So you had a mattress. It wasn't like a
wasn't much of a mattress.
Canvas.
No, it wasn't much of a mattress, about 3 inches thick. But anyway, that's where it was staying.
And where did you go after that?
Well, after our training there, why, we spent about, I think about 12 weeks at training and got acquainted with our equipment. We was on a 105 Howitzer, and we went up in the mountains somewhere, don't know where it was at, somewhere, and fired them. Spent a week up there to get acquainted with how the gun operated and what the situation, how to function. And then after we left there, they sent us to Fort Meade, Maryland. They gave me a 15-day delay en route. That's the only pass I had 15 days to get from California to Fort Meade, Maryland. So I had about 6 or 7 days at home. Time it took 4 days to get from California back to Mount Vernon, and 4 days to get on to Fort Meade, Maryland.
You had to get there on your own, or they took you on the train?
I had a pass on a train, troop train, to get there. Keep your feet from freezing. But whenever we caught up with where we were going, there was a crossroad outside of Bastogne, about 30 miles. And they had 4 machine gun nests set up there. The Germans did, and that was our objective, was to take that crossroad. And the 101st Airborne had dropped in. That's paratroopers. They had dropped into Bastogne, and the Germans had them surrounded, and they were running out of supplies. And the weather was bad and cloudy, and the airplanes couldn't fly. So we was there to try to relieve them guys, see if we could get through 2 of them where they could get some supplies. And this was on Christmas Day. That morning they gave us a turkey dinner about 10:30, and we took off and our objective was to take this crossroad to get to with them a machine gun nest, and you go across this field to get there. And the grass and weeds was about 2 foot high, and you see them machine gun bullets just cut that grass off as you were running, and guys was dropping on both sides of you, and you didn't know when you was gonna get hit or if you was gonna make it.
So you made it.
Then I made it. I had a lot of friends that lost.
So did you get through?
And by about 4:30, 5 o'clock that evening, why they called a halt to it, and we all dug in foxholes and dug in 2 men in a hole. Yeah, foxhole was just big enough you could get in there below the top of the ground. And 2 men to the hole, and you'd sleep an hour, and then you'd wake up, and your buddy sleep an hour, and then you'd wake him up, and then you'd watch for an hour to make sure nobody come and shot you during the night. And about the 3rd day, we finally conquered the guys that got the machine gun nest shot out, but over half of the fellows was either dead or wounded that was in the group. So after we got that accomplished, why they took us, we started on it walking, and our company commander was drunk about half the time. He didn't know where he was at, and 2 times, sometimes we'd walk all day and was going in the wrong direction. And I have to turn around and go the other way. But anyway, it's one of those things that happens whenever you're not in charge and somebody else is. You can't trust them. Anyway, we had accomplished that part. I don't know, it was about the middle of January, we was going through this territory where they was, Germans was dug in, and if we never did have a fight out in the open where you could see who you was shooting at. They was always in the woods or in a place, and you just go in there and start shooting. But we was marching fire with a tank. It'd be a tank, and it'd be about 8 men and another tank, and it was lined up that way for probably a mile or 2. What they call marching fire, shooting from the hip and into this here wooded area to get rid of these machine guns and going through there. And we had some new fellows we'd picked up, that replacements that had just came over, and a couple of them was between me and another guy, or this other tank, and this one kid, couldn't have been more than 18 if he was 18, but he kept falling back, getting farther back and shooting. And he shot the rifle out of this guy's hand next door, next to me, and the bayonet clip, the thing where on the bottom of the barrel it holds the bayonet on, flew off and come and hit me in the back of the head, knocked me down, and blood running down my neck, not knowing what it was. And the medic came by, and he took me back to the medical tent, and he took me back to the hospital tent the next day, and they took it out, and that's what it was. I didn't know what hit me, but anyway, they asked me if I wanted that as a souvenir. At that time, I didn't know whether I'd even make it or not, so I told them I didn't want it, but I heard it hit and dropping this metal can there by the bed, and I was there in the hospital about 2 weeks till that healed up. Then they sent me back to my outfit. I don't know how they knew where they were at, but anyway, they took me back, and at that time, why, they had got far enough advanced, and they was going to relieve our company, let them go back for 2 weeks on at a rest area to kind of rest up, and they sent me and 3 other guys back with the Jeep to locate the town where they was going to go in to get housing for them, and we just went down the street, wasn't nobody living there, people was all gone, and until we find enough room for everybody to stay in the houses, and there wasn't nothing there except the house, and we'd sleep on the floor and everything. Most everything else was all either destroyed, and that's what they called a R&R, rest of recuperation.
In an empty town that
In an
you weren't
empty
even
town.
sure whether it had Germans in it or you were just looking for a place to stay.
It had already been cleared out, so we spent about 2 weeks or, well, I think 10 days there. But after that, it was just hit and run, hit and run.
So did you have tents at night, or you just, what was your
No, we
living
either
situation
slept in a
like?
foxhole or with that shelter half that you sleep on. We never had no beds or any place that we stayed in. But,
And what were you eating?
we had what they called a K-ration. Is in a box, about like a Cracker Jack box. And you had a little round can that's about an inch tall. It had bacon and eggs in it you'd have for breakfast. Then you had 3 of these they'd give you every morning. Have one for breakfast, one for lunch, and one for supper. But this breakfast would have these eggs and bacon and a little round biscuit, hard 3 of them in there, and a stick of gum, and a little piece of a chocolate bar, and 3 cigarettes. And I'd swap my cigarettes to somebody had for their chocolate bar. Somebody that wanted to smoke. Because that was the only way they could get cigarettes.
Yeah.
And at lunch, why, it usually would be hash or something like that. And everybody always called it hash because it tastes like it's made out of the kidneys of a hog. I don't know what it was, but we ate it to stay alive.
Wow. So you were in France then?
Yeah, we were in France. We got over into Luxembourg, or Czechoslovakia. We got over in Czechoslovakia, why there wasn't too much going on there, except just cleaning up. And one time we was moving faster than our supply train was, and we had to stay in one place for 3 days because wait till our supplies caught up with us, we'd running out of ammunition, and if the Germans would have known it, they could have took us because we didn't have any supplies. Then when we did get stocked up, why we took off, and one day walking, and we crossed this little river, and it didn't have a bridge or anything to get across because it couldn't get any vehicles across. So we went on afoot and walked about another 5 or 6 miles, and to this little old, you call them a town, but it was the people over there all lived together in a little complex out in the country, and they farmed all of the ground around there. There'd only be about 8 or 10 houses in one group, and we took over one of them. And during the night, we heard this noise, and you could hear this squeaking noise, and come find out it was German tanks. There was 3 tanks coming down the road from the north coming towards us, and we all got in the basement of this one house, and our observer called back to our field artillery and had them to fire on us. And if it hadn't been for that, we'd have probably been taken prisoner. But they knocked out them 3 tanks. And next morning we saw 2 of them out there at the edge of town and burning, and one of them was right up close by where we were, the house that we was in. But that was the only time that we was really concerned about maybe being captured or anything.
When they fired on you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then where did you go?
Well, we got within 40 miles of Berlin and sat there for, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks waiting for the Russians to take Berlin. That was part of the thing that the president and them, the agreement had made that Russia, I guess, would take Berlin, but we never did go into Berlin. But then we sat there and waited till after the Germans, or the Russians took Berlin. And after the war was over, they're still fighting in the South Pacific, and they decided that they needed some people in the South Pacific, so they got us all rounded up and back in France. I don't know how many, 600-700 of us was there on this plot of ground, and was going to go to Japan. And General Patton came by, is in August. Patton came by and waved at us, standing up in the Jeep. That's the only time I ever saw him. But he went by, and then I think the next day or so, the Japanese surrendered. So we didn't go to the South Pacific. They put us on an outpost down in southern Austria, up in the foothill of the Alps Mountains. And we was on this outpost, different places, because the people was trying to come from other countries to get away from there, coming into that territory where we were at, and for food and water and whatever they could get. And they had us up there, had this outpost. We was having to check these people as they come across to see if this was legal or not. There wasn't nobody supposed to get through unless they lived right close around there. And we had an outpost set up here, and about half a quarter over here was the Russians. They were over there. And what was really comical was the Russians had this territory at one time, and they moved them back to create this, I don't know, they called it demilitarized zone or something, where they divided up the territory. And the Russians was over there, and we were over here. And then the Russians was going to come over and want to go to this little town over there, because they had got acquainted with some of them people, and we couldn't let them go by themselves. So they sent me with one guy one night. He wanted to go down there and see some girl, and that he got acquainted with.
And you were the chaperone, huh?
And I was his chaperone. And he's drinking hard cider and eating little onions. I couldn't believe them little old onion buds. He's eating them. He got about 2/3 drunk. I had a horrible time getting him back to the outpost before daylight.
So, when was the Battle of the Bulge?
Well, that was in 44.
Were you there?
That's where I was at to start with. The Battle of the Bulge is where we went when we left France.
Okay.
And we went to the Battle of the Bulge, and that's where after that's when I got wounded and had to go to the hospital.
Okay.
And then after we was there on the outpost, we went where there was a house. Well, I don't know, there at this outpost, there was about 4 or 5 houses there, and there was 10 of us on this outpost. And I had made sergeant by that time, and so I didn't have to stand guard. But the staff sergeant that was above me, he would made out a roster, and the other guys would rotate, standing guard 8 hours a day, at night 24 hours a day here at this outpost. And I had an opportunity to get a pass to go to Paris, and so I took a 7-day leave and went to Paris. Took about 3 days to get there, and I was there about 2 days or 2.5, and it wasn't nothing really to see that I got too excited about it, except the Eiffel Tower. I went up in the Eiffel Tower, up on the first floor. That's as far as you could go at that time, and different places. Looked around there, visited Paris for about 2.5 days, and picked up a lot of goodies for the guys in the group. They said different ones wanted a souvenir or something. or,
Did someone go, did you have friends who went with you? Did you go by
no,
yourself?
I was with myself, except other guys, that I wasn't acquainted with them, but there was about 10 of us went in this 6x truck that went. And then after that, that was long in September, October, I think it was, of 44. And then after they started letting some come home on a point system, and so I had and found out that with my age and the number of months I'd been there, I had an opportunity to come home in January. So after they came got my papers and everything ready, I moved back to Paris, or back to France, in the last part of December. And we was a group there, I don't know, several tents. There was in a tent then. And it was the winter time, and these here tents had about 12 or 15 in a tent. It had a little round stove about the size of a 5-gallon bucket with a pipe on it, and they'd give us a coffee can full of coal dust. That's what we were supposed to burn in that stove to keep warm. You about froze to death because that dust didn't burn very good.
I wouldn't think so.
But we was there probably a week or 10 days getting ready to come home. And when I come home, they brought me home on the Thomas Berry, which had been a luxury liner at the time. It was a wooden vessel, inside all wood, and they was, I don't know, we weren't overloaded, but we had a full crew on it. And coming home, took us 17 days to come home in that thing, because it only took us 7 to go over and 17 to come back. It was a slow mover.
Wow.
But we came through in the winter time. It was up the North Sea, and we ran into a storm up somewhere in the North Sea, and the thing listed 14 degrees or something. What that said, if it went 2 more degrees, it would have turned over. But we was getting ready to eat breakfast, and all of the coffee and stuff fell off the stove, and the guys down in the mess hall was sliding around on the floor. Some of them got broken legs and broken arms.
Holy smokes.
Everything, because it was really rough. And so we didn't get to eat that meal till we got everything cleaned up and a new meal. But anyway, I landed in New York and was there in February, I think February the 1st or 2nd. And I came back to Camp Grant and got discharged on February the 6th, 19. We come back to Camp Grant, Illinois.
Where was that?
It's up by Chicago.
Okay, by train?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It was a little bit faster train than the one we went to California on.
Okay.
But
how-
it was a slow mover troop train.
And how did you get home to Mount Vernon?
Well, they bused us from Camp Grant to Mount Vernon.
Okay. Did anybody know you were coming?
Coming home, I think they did. I don't know. It's hard to remember what.
What they knew and what they didn't.
We didn't have cell phones at that time. You didn't talk to anybody.
Did you get any mail while you were gone?
Oh, I got some mail once in a while, not very much.
Not on time,
And
huh?
didn't have much to write on, and they'd give you a little, I don't know what they called it, something. It was supposed to be airmail, but it was a little envelope that unfolded. You could write a little bit on it, fold it up and mail it. But
Oh, I remember those. They were, yeah, airmail letters.
Yeah.
Just one sheet of paper and you folded it up and it went for airmail.
yeah, right.
Yeah. So how long before the end of the war were you home?
Oh, I don't know. The war ended what, in May or June?
I'm not sure. When it,
In
what?
about 9 months.
Okay, okay. So what did you do after you got home?
Well, after I got home, I was helping my dad farm. I signed up for and went to a farming school. The government paid me $90 a month for 6 months. And after that, I was on my own. And then I got married in, 47? And worked at the coal mine.
Okay. So what were you most proud about of your military service?
And I made it out alive.
Yeah.
Had all my members on me.
Yeah.
Didn't lose a foot or leg or something. I had people that did lose a feet, different things. You'd see them crippled up and shot. It's bad to see a guy get shot standing right beside of you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So how do you think your war experiences have affected you? Do you think they've affected you?
Well, I don't, for a long time I would wake up at night running or screaming or hollering, but lately I haven't had much effect on me, but it was horrible there for a while. You'd have nightmares.